Your ability to qualify leads will have a direct indication on the type of results you get in the world of business and sales. Now, unfortunately, qualifying leads has been a very loose term that's thrown around. It's not really practiced too much, and there really isn't a system around it outside of, does the prospect have enough money to buy what we're selling? If they don't, then they're unqualified or disqualified. If they have the money, then they're qualified. But that is just scratching the surface of what a qualified lead truly is. So over the next couple of minutes, I want to share with you a simplified process that you can install into your sales system today. We have simplified it to the point of it being a red, yellow, or green flag system that will help you qualify prospects in the moment and set yourself up for better sales success. So the big question is, what is a qualified lead? Well, we've broken it down to two different types of leads that could technically be qualified. The first one is being a value qualified lead. Now, a value qualified lead is someone who wants your product, needs your product, is morally, ethically aligned with how you're running your business. You feel that they would be successful in using your product or service. And then the other one is financially qualified. We already touched on that a little bit, but most importantly, do they have the means to be able to invest without having to bankrupt themselves? And by investing, would they actually be able to see a return on their investment? So for standard practice, a lead is typically someone that you can speak to regarding your product or service. Now, for what we're going to be talking about is narrowing it down and getting more granular and more specific. So for the sake of this training video, we boiled it down to 4 key points. Number 1, the person, the prospect, the lead, has actually shown interest in what it is that you're selling. Number 2, not only are they interested, but they actually need what it is that you're selling. Number 3, they have at some point have had contact or have shown interest in the product or service. So they either have been in contact with your company, they've opted in, they've watched webinars, they've engaged more than just the like on social media pages, and they're actually engaging with the company, wanting to learn more. And number 4 is after their initial connection with the company and learning more information about who it is that you serve, what it is that you do, they actually want to pursue the possibility of working with you or buying your product or service. Now, the question is going to come out, well, what about cold calls and DMs and all of that fun stuff? All of those people are definitely considered leads. But after you've initiated initial engagement, does the prospect check all 4 of those boxes? If the answer is yes, then we continue. If not, then there's no sense of considering them a qualified lead. Now, once those key 4 points have been established, the sales process is officially underway and we are moving in the direction with a desired outcome of closing the sale. So now we're gonna take a step back and take a look at financially qualified and value qualified leads. Now, to me, I think that the prospect should check both of the boxes. They should be both value qualified and financially qualified for us to be able to extend an offer and try to close them. So let's take a quick look at what a value qualified prospect looks like. The first one is that the prospect actually wants or needs your product. They've actually engaged with you a little bit and they're trying to pursue what it would look like to potentially invest or purchase your product or service. Number 2, the prospect actually aligns with the values of the company. Nobody's going to buy from a company that they don't align with. So the prospect knows your mission statement, they understand what it is that you stand for, the morals and ethics and beliefs that you have, and they feel aligned with what it is that you stand for as a company, making them more likely to actually purchase. Number 3, they have a certain set of expectations, you have a certain set of expectations, and the expectations need to be aligned or matched, which would allow the prospect to feel comfortable with making a purchase. Number 4, the prospect sees long-term potential in what it is that you're doing. So a lot of the times we're not trying to sell quick fixes or get out of jail free cards or anything like that. We're looking to invest not only into our company, but into the prospect to help with retention, build reoccurring revenue, and obviously deliver awesome results. Now, if we're looking at it from a prospective standpoint, they're also looking for somewhere that they can invest and potentially rebuy or stay with the service for a long period of time. Nobody wants to invest a lot of time and money only for it to be short-lived and feel like they lost out. And number 5 is going to be work ethic and compliance. Now, if you're selling like a product, it may not really fall into your net, but if you're doing a service, you want to find someone who is going to be compliant, who's going to work, who's going to follow the path that you lay out. You don't have to worry about them not showing up to calls, not making their payments, not fulfilling assignments, etc., etc. So we have to realize that this person actually has an established work ethic that would allow them to be successful within our program. Now let's shift gears and look at financially qualified prospects. So the first thing that I look for when financially qualifying prospects is that not only can they invest, but they can invest with room to spare. So their investment into my service is not going to put them out on the streets, take food off their table, take the roof over their head away, or anything along those lines. Little disclaimer here, if you feel like taking someone's last dollar just to get them into a program that you know will not deliver for them is your way about going through business, then you should just stop the video, because we're not aligned and we would not be able to really work together in any capacity. So if you are taking someone's last dollar that will compromise their financial situation, you are taking advantage of desperation and someone who is trusting in you and hoping that what they're investing in with you is going to completely change their lives. And if you cannot do that in a short period of time, then you shouldn't be taking that last dollar. And here's another thing to consider. When you do take someone's last dollar and there's massive amount of financial stress involved in that investment, it's only going to put more pressure on the prospect. Yes, obviously we want prospects to feel the pressure when they sign up so that they move forward and they're compliant with what is it we need them to do. But it also implies massive amounts of stress on the fulfillment team as well, because if you don't hit everything on the head and to over deliver on your promises, well, then we're going to have a bigger problem that we don't want to deal with. The second thing that I'm looking for when financially qualifying a prospect is that they have a current stream of income. They have some cash flow and or ample amount of savings. So in a scenario in which someone's like, you know what, I can put a down payment down, it might make things tight, but they're getting another paycheck in 2 weeks, which would kind of open it back up and alleviate some of that stress, I have no problem financially qualifying them and moving forward. What I was talking about prior is that all they have is $5,000 and nothing else, no income, no cash flow, no nothing, and you want to take $4,500 of it. That's unethical. But if finances are a little bit tight because of the investment that could potentially change their outcome and give them their ideal outcome or solution, and they're going to be replenished with that next week and the next 2 weeks from a paycheck or other cash flow sources, then we can live uncomfortably for a short period of time, and making that investment isn't going to completely ruin their entire financial situation. Now, the other side of it is ample savings. If they have ample amount of savings, let's say that you're selling a $5,000 product and they have $100,000 in the bank and they want to spend $5,000 to buy your service, well, in that case, you're not going to drastically hurt them financially. So I say it's completely fine to move forward. And number three, this is kind of like an asterisk. It's an as needed or if needed basis, but they have the ability or access to additional working capital, additional cash flow that they can tap into, investments they might be able to pull out of to make it happen. Now, I'm not one to always jump to financing options. I don't think that they're always in the best interest of the prospect, but sometimes they can be an extremely useful tool to help the prospect get over the hump and break free so that they can use your product or service and hopefully see massive benefits from it. So this would fall under the line of they have a good relationship with their bank, or they have a good credit score and you provide financing options. Something along those lines would also be suitable for considering someone to be financially qualified. And here's what I love about being in like the business coaching and system space is that a lot of the times the investments that they're making into your services or your coaching program could potentially yield bigger monetary results. So if they paid you $5,000 and then they made 15, well, they 3x their money. It's like an investment. They put the $5,000 in, get the 15K back. All is good with the world. Everybody's happy. No one's really been upset by just tripling their money. Where it gets kind of tough is where you start pushing really hard on the financial side of things and your service doesn't necessarily have a one-to-one tie of monetary gains back. So if you're selling some type of like spiritual coaching or something along those lines that doesn't necessarily go out and generate more money directly, it could be a lot harder to push someone who might be uncomfortable for a while to actually invest into your program. But that's where skill sets around sales have to be developed so that you can get to that level where it makes sense to do so. But again, we don't want to take away from someone who's in a tough financial situation and then not be able to provide any type of return of their investment. So now that you have a good idea of what a value qualified prospect is and a financially qualified prospect is, let's take the next step. Let's get a little bit more tactical on how you can start qualifying people through the sales process using what we've been talking about. So the big mental shift that needs to happen for you to successfully qualify your prospects better is to stop trying to qualify. I know that sounds counterintuitive and it sounds kind of a hypocrisy when I say that, but the reason why we need to take our mindset off of trying to qualify and start focusing focusing on disqualifying prospects is because when we're trying to qualify someone, we have an underlining bias that says, oh, maybe this will work, and we end up putting ourselves or the prospect into a tough situation. But if I'm looking at it from a disqualifying standpoint and I'm asking questions trying to get them disqualified, but they pass the test, well, then congratulations, the person is now qualified. The last thing we want to do is have an underlining basis where we think we can spin some magic spell and be able to make it happen. Instead, ask questions and listen for reasons as to why it would not work. And when they pass that test, well, by default, they're qualified. Okay, so now that we've established we should be focusing on asking questions and listening for things that would potentially disqualify them as opposed to qualify them, let's move forward and start talking about the red, yellow, and green flag system that we've implemented that has made qualifying prospects 100 times easier. So real quick, red flags are things that are said by the prospect that really kind of constitute disqualification. Now, you may not disqualify them immediately, but you make note of it. And if another one comes up and they're at 2 or 3 red flags, it's probably time to disqualify them. Some other things that you should be considering when listening for red flags isn't so much the words, yes, they're important, but also how they are being said. So if engagement is non-existent or they're saying things with a very sarcastic tone, things along those lines, those are also red flags. So what they say and how they say it truly matters. So let's shift gears. Let's look at yellow flags. Yellow flags typically stand around vagueness. You don't know one way or another, is this good or is this bad? Example being, so Mr. Prospect, what brought you to the call today? And they said, I'm just interested. Okay, very vague. How can we either ask clarifying or probing type questions to get them to turn that I'm interested into a red flag where it's disqualified and we shouldn't be on the call, or turn it into a green flag where it's like, okay, we're aligned, we can continue to move forward. So let's move into green flags since we just mentioned them. Green flags are the no-brainers or the home runs of what you're hearing on the call. So an example of this being, Mr. Prospect, what brought you to the call? And Mr. Prospect says, I saw the ad, I've been following you guys for a while, I've done my research, I've read the reviews, I actually know someone's been through the program, and I can't wait to get started. It's like, oh, slam dunk, let's keep it moving. There's no need to basically dig deeper on that. It's exactly what we need to hear for us to take the next step and have our calls become more efficient. So now that the flags are established, let's take a look at 6 different qualifications that you should be looking into and listening for when on the call. And they're not all what you think. So number 1 is the blatantly obvious one, and that is the information or the answers that they're giving you to any kind of questions that you're asking. Now, this might just stand out to you when they're like, hey, I don't have any income, I don't have any money, and you're selling a $10,000 program. It's probably not a good fit, right? So this is just the basic information that you're hearing throughout the call. Number 2 is going to be the vagueness or the clarity in which they give their answers. Now, I just gave some examples with that, with like the yellow flag and the green flag. But if you get someone who is consistently being vague, not giving up any kind of ground or any kind of information that would actually help you help them, well, these are things that we need to be listening for. Now, I would much rather have someone be clear as day and not a good fit than wishy-washy, kind of on the border, and I don't know. Number 3, we touched on this briefly. It's the tonality in which they are delivering their information or answers to you. Are they doing it confidently? Are they speaking clearly? Are they being really timid? Are they being sarcastic? Are they being playful? We have to listen to how they say things. A lot of times, pain in the discovery process will be uncovered not because of what they're saying, but because how they're saying it, and they have defensive lines or words that they're using or uncomfortable giggles and laughs that really feel displaced in the conversation. So when we hear those type of cues, that's a signal for us to dig in further. Number 4 is the type of engagement that we're having on the call. So we talked about the information and the tonality, but what is the engagement? Like, we can get good information with decent tonality, but all of a sudden you hear kids screaming in the background and they're cooking dinner, and you hear that, you hear the spoon hitting the pan, and it's like, are we distracted right now? And then the engagement isn't really that great because their focus is elsewhere. So we have to also gauge their level of engagement to the call. Are they active listening? When we ask them questions, are we getting good replies in turn? Again, good reply doesn't mean that they're always green flags. They just simply means that they are giving us clear and precise answers, and they're also engaging with us back and forth in a conversation. It's not just how you doing today? Good. We don't want to hear that. How you doing today? Oh, I'm doing great. How are you? Oh, wonderful. There's some good engagement that we can use in the beginning of the call. Number 5 is creating financial points of emphasis. This is where we are blending in questions within conversation that we can start to get a picture of their current financial situation. It's things like income, savings account, cash on hand, credit score. All of this can be uncovered in a very conversational way. So what I see a lot of is scripts or salespeople have an isolated section for financial qualification where the conversation is going great, there's good engagement back and forth, and then all of a sudden it gets weird because it's like, okay, now I gotta make sure you can afford what it is that we're selling. And the prospect feels that. So we gotta pull out those financial intel, the financial information while we're just engaging in conversation. And the last one goes back to the engagement. Are they showing that they're coachable? Are they actively listening? Are they asking good questions in return? Do they have proper etiquette? Are they using profanity all over the place? Is that really a value alignment to your business? These are all things we have to listen for while being on the call. All right, so a quick exercise that you can do is take those 6 points that we just went over, list them out on a piece of paper, and then start filling them in particular to your offer and your company. For example, if you went back and you looked at the value points of emphasis, what would that look like for your product or for your service? Are you looking for people who are engaging, show coachability, adaptability, willingness to learn, proper etiquette? Are they using the right language? Are they swearing all the time, right? All those examples we just used, I want you to list those out for each one of the 6 that we just went over. It'll start to help you identify the qualities of the prospect you're talking to and help you make a clear decision whether or not they are indeed qualified. So now that we've identified financially qualified and value qualified prospects, the 6 points of emphasis of what we should be looking for and listening for during our sales engagement, I want you to take a step back and look at the list of questions that you should be asking on your sales call and start seeing, are there particular questions that are going to help you pull this type of information out? Are there ones that need to be modified, or possibly you need to add in questions to your discovery so that you can start to identify all 6 points of emphasis and start to see if they're red, yellow, or green flags. So here's why all of that is extremely important and why we need to put the time in now to become more efficient. I have seen time and time again, listening to thousands of sales calls, working with hundreds of sales reps, where calls last 1.5, 2 times, 3 times longer than they should because the prospect is sitting there checking boxes off of their script and making sure that they ask every single question, but they're not engaged and they're not actively listening to what the prospect is saying. So when we're able to identify red flags, yellow flags, green flags immediately, we can drastically cut down on call times simply because we know the key identifiers of what we're looking for. And if we get a couple red flags, we disqualify that prospect and we move on. If we get green flags, we're not digging, we're not probing, we're not getting a lot of clarity around home run answers or home run dialogue back and forth. There's no sense to. It's more of an interest to you at that point than it is actually tied to the outcome of the call. Now, where we need to start digging is going to be on the yellow flags, the vagueness, the uncertainties, all of which need to have clarity. Your goal when you have a yellow flag answer that is vague, you need to ask questions until you can identify, is this a green or a red flag? Again, I would much rather have someone be an absolute red flag than a yellow flag in which I'm stuck guessing the whole time. So what I want to do now is give you some word tracks that you can use inside of your sales script and sales encounter. Obviously modify, customize as needed. These are generic examples, and I'm also going to give you the replies of a red, yellow, and green flag so you can start hearing and seeing the difference. First question. So Mr. Prospect, what was it that motivated you to want to schedule this call in the first place? Red flag example. Well, I saw that you guys guarantee that I can make a lot of money without doing much work. So right then and there, that is a red flag that this person has already indicated that he does not want to put any kind of work in to whatever product or service that you're trying to sell. Yellow flag example. Well, I saw the ad last night on Instagram and I was not quite sure on what it is that you actually do, but it seemed fairly intriguing, so I'm here to find out more information. Okay, not quite a green flag, definitely not a red flag. We can work with this. Now we got to get more clarity, which is perfectly fine. We continue to move through the sales script. Green flag example. Well, when I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw your ad, it really spoke to me and I felt really tied to the values that you were sharing, and I'm here to learn more, and it sounds sounds like something I could see myself doing. Okay, now we know someone who's engaged, they saw the ad, and they've actually done their own research, so that's ultimately a green flag. Another question example. Do you know what it is that you're looking for specifically? Red flag, just want to make more money. A yellow flag, not sure. It seems like it can make some more money, and if it made sense, I would definitely entertain it. Green flag, yeah, I would like to be able to work for a company that would allow me to do X, Y, and Z so that I can A, B, and C. You see the difference between the yellows and the green. Yellow has decent intent, green has clarity with the intent. Question number 3, so what's your ideal outcome here? Red flag example, oh, I make about $30,000 a year and I want to have multiple passive streams of income. This is a red flag, not because they're making $30,000 a year, which might make their investment tough, but it's the fact that they're making $30,000 a year and they think they can stack multiple passive income streams. Yellow flag, I make about $35,000 a year and ideally I'd like to double it. Okay, so now we're working with something here. Like, we're in the ballpark of financial means, being able to potentially invest in what we do and then also be able to deliver an outcome which seems fairly reasonable. Having someone go from $35,000 a year to $70,000 a year really isn't out of the question, but we still need more clarity. A green flag answer would be, I make about $55,000 a year right now, and I'd ideally like to get to $100,000 a year, probably within the next 12 to 18 months. I know it's not gonna happen overnight. Makes decent money, has a clear sense of how long something might take for them to accomplish their goal, and they're willing to put the work in. That's why they're a green flag. Here's another question you can ask when you're trying to decipher if they need another decision maker in to help them make a decision on moving forward, and you ask them, who else would this impact, and do you feel that they're supportive of you making this decision? A red flag would be, no, they don't support anything that I do. Right, quite obvious. A yellow flag is, no, they would definitely be impacted. I'm hoping they'd be supportive. I think I'd really have to sell them on this. It's like, okay, well, something to work with, but we need to get more clarity, and we now know when we go to present, we have to provide high amounts of certainty, high amounts of clarity, and help them get over the hump of the decision maker. Green flag answer, and it's probably quite obvious. Yeah, my wife knows I'm on this call. She actually encouraged me to get here, and she totally trusts, my judgment and told me to do what I feel is right. Okay, beautiful, right? All the green flags that we want to hear. We're not going to ask more about the wife because it's already been addressed with clarity, so now we can continue to move on. So I could sit here for the next hour and continue to go over more questions and red, yellow, green flag examples and all of that, but I don't want to bore you to death. Now, if you have questions about the type of questions you should be asking, or you want to know specifics around a red, yellow, or green flag response to a specific question that you're asking in your sales process, by all means, drop them in the comments, send me an email, whatever it might be. I'll be more than happy to assist you with that. I want to thank you for checking out this video. Hopefully you found this informative. You learned a thing or two. There is a PDF that I would love for you to check out. It's completely free. So once you find that link in the comments or in my bio, somewhere in that area, you'll be able to download this PDF, and it just gives you multiple different scenarios and exercises that you can do to become better at qualifying your prospects so that you can be more productive and land more deals. So what I'd like to do is ask for you to tell me what you want to see next on the next sales training video. Go ahead, drop a comment below, and I look forward to reading them.